Welcome to the Unconditionally Loved podcast. I'm Jeanne Street and I'm so happy you're here. Today, we are going to be talking all around getting your voice out into the world and what it looks like to work with a book publisher. And you're going to have a really special treat with my guest and dear friend, Richelle Fredson, who is the six-figure book deal coach. Richelle has a really rich history in book publishing. She worked at Hay House. She worked with amazing authors. She worked directly with Louise Hay, which is absolutely incredible. And she shares some inside stories behind the scenes of what that was like. So let's get into this. Hey, how are you?
Good.
It's so fun to have you come and be on the podcast and just get to see you anyways, because
I know, such a good excuse.
you.
I don't get to be on other people's podcasts that often. It's really an honor. Thank you.
Oh, I'm so happy. And I tell so many people about you. So this is even better that Richelle gets to be here and I get to be like, guys, listen to this podcast now.
I'm so excited.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So there were so many things I wanted to talk to you about. And I was like, ooh, what are we going to talk about? Obviously books, but I feel like we know so many of the same people. And I think that's a lot of fun. I got to meet Michelle Garside.
Michelle.
At an event I did and I thought you knew Jeanne. So I had invited you to an event at her house because her and Michelle are friends. And for some reason,
Jeanne?
Yes.
I don't know her. I've just heard her name a million times.
Yeah. She's someone you're going to love to meet. Like amazing, super yummy and amazing too.
Oh, I look forward to it. Yeah. Michelle's literally the reason I started my business. So we can absolutely talk about her.
Ooh, that's good. Yeah.
And I think too, it's just like stories, right? We all have them. Sometimes we don't realize how much they can be impactful to other people and the connection through writing. We can go a million different directions.
Right. Yeah.
I'm an open book.
I think I really like that about your program. The book proposal blueprint, which was phenomenal. Like a really great space for me to enter as an author and to go to the next level for myself. And those co-writing experiences are so beneficial because you're with other authors who, like you, are nervous. They're judging themselves.
Yeah.
They are crushing it in areas of their life, but here you're in this intimate space and you see the real stuff.
Yeah. And everyone's the same in that room. It's so interesting in this new, in the new iteration, that's part course modules, part group setting.
Okay.
We don't co-write together, but we had feedback sessions. So it's just like our group sessions used to be.
Yes.
But you're giving me an idea to throw some co-writings in there.
Yeah. It was so beneficial. And I think we kept co-writing even though we were done. We did a bunch of
extra sessions.
Yeah, we did. Yeah. Because you were a great implementer of that.
Thank you. I love it.
Yeah. And you put a post on today that I really thought, let's dive into this because it's super yummy. And I've had a business I opened my first business in 2007, my official business, but I've always been an entrepreneur. I've always, I had a cleaning business and I watched kids and I did it all. I waitressed. But I love so much about that post. So do you want to share it and then we'll go into it a little bit?
I would love to. I'm super fired up about it.
Yeah, good.
I won't be angry, but I'll be.
No, be sassy.
I'll be sassy.
Be sassy.
The only way I know how to be.
Yeah. So let's talk about that post because again, like I feel like it's really important for people entering the scene, or even if you've had a seasoned business for a while, like to understand why is it not happening?
Yeah. I think that there is, first of all, we're in a time where there's just so much information everywhere. And my dad has actually been a longtime entrepreneur, but when we talk about sort of shared, struggles and challenges, like nearly none of his come from like a visibility standpoint, right? So we're on social media all the time. A lot of us are running online centric businesses. And I think that there's this pretty dangerous narrative that's happening out there around what your business should look like, how easy it should be, how much freedom you should have, right? The laptop lifestyle, the, sitting in a coffee shop and working for 2 hours and then, I don't know, going shopping or doing whatever, sitting on a beach, whatever it is. And I don't, for myself and for the people that I know, find that to be a reality. I think there are seasons of hustle, there are seasons of flow, there are seasons of learning, and quite frankly, there's just no finish line. I don't know anyone in their business that's like, I did it, I made it.
Yes, that's it. Yeah. And you've had a long career of this, because like, tell us where you first started, like how you got into books. And I know it's lifelong, so.
Yeah. It's funny. If you were to ask my parents, they are still quite shocked that I ended up in publishing, because I was the kid who could never finish a book. I wanted the Cliff Notes version of everything, which dates me, because when I say Cliff Notes now, no one really knows what that is. But I wanted the cheater version, like that summarize it for me. I don't want to read all 200, 300 pages. Right. And then when I was in college and studying PR and marketing, I was contacted by a publishing company, Hay House. I was in an internship at the time at a PR agency, and was fine, but it wasn't full alignment for me. The people that worked there weren't very happy. It didn't really seem like it was going to be the best fit for me long term. And Hay House reached out to me and said, we see that your resume is on monster.com, which I also don't know if that still exists. And I just hadn't taken it down. I hadn't tended to it. I didn't really do anything with it. I kind of threw it up on a site, and here comes this phone call. And I said, oh, publishing. No. Like, that's not for me. And the woman on the other end said, well, let me tell you about our company culture and the type of work that we do. And we have 4-day work weeks. I'm like, well, wait a minute. Okay, this is sounding a little bit better. I ended up going up for an interview. I come in like a full black pantsuit with my leather portfolio of all my PR bookings, like ready to do this interview. And the woman meeting me was in flip-flops and yoga pants and had her hair in a wet bun. Yeah, it was like such a culture clash. I had never experienced anything like that. I think you think about going to some of your early job interviews and you feel that you need to be very buttoned up, which I did. And this woman was just so cash and so lovely. And we had this great conversation. And midway through the interview, this woman, older woman, pops her head in the door, takes a gander at me, nods, and walks back out. It was Louise Hay. Who I didn't know.
I've got the chills, like, oh my gosh. Could you, I mean, if you think about you now, and if like on the outside, if you had no idea, like, could you, like, you would have been so tickled pink. You would have been like,
what? Yeah, it would have been ridiculous. And I think she was popping in to say like a hello and to sort of like communicate with the woman who would later be my boss for a couple of years. And the woman interviewing, who ended up being my boss for a while, sent me home with a box of products and said, if you are cool with everything in this box, the job is yours. And I get home and I pour a glass of wine and I call my mom and we're chatting and we open this box and it is card decks like fairies and all the Oracle decks, right? That now we know and love. And I was like, wow, I just launched a Sony laptop computer 2 days ago. And now I am looking at fairy Oracle cards like this. I don't know what this world is. This is very strange to me. And I thought, I'm young, what do I have to lose? Like everyone that like when I walked through the office seemed very happy and very cool and they're enjoying themselves and they're doing something kind of different. Why not? Right. And so I said yes. And then I spent a little over 15 years there. So
I love this story so much because it's like Hay House has such a place in my heart. And I've followed all of those early authors and I was into all of those woo books and it was my world. And to see like you as this young adult going in there without a clue. It's like, I wish I was you. You just painted such a beautiful picture. Like, oh my gosh.
It was really fun to see the evolution to being there for so long. You know, I started there in the PR department, and we're pitching all of these shows and with content that was not yet mainstream in any capacity. And so we'd get producers on the phone. They'd say, look, I'm secretly a major fan of this, but I cannot put it on my TV show. Like, we're going to freak out the advertisers, and I'm not going to get, you know, the big guys to sign off on this. And it felt like this constant upstream battle to try and get people to see things a little bit differently. And back then, when I started in 2003, we were only publishing like maybe 10, 12 books a year. When I left in 2018, we were doing between 80 and 100 books a year. So it was fascinating to watch the evolution of people and different types of content landing in a different way through the mainstream lens over those years, and just really how eyes were opened and people were more receptive for different ways of thinking.
So you actually helped open that door. You were there. You were the door opener that paved the way for all of these healers, for all of this intuitive work to be normalized.
Yeah. And I remember some of those days were really hard because I would tour with authors back when authors would tour on a publisher's budget, which doesn't happen anymore. And I remember doing a psychic tour.
Really?
With John Holland, Sylvia Brown, Gordon Smith, you know, right. And there were times where you just couldn't get people to even show up to a book signing. It was so new. It was all so new. Right. And that's not the case anymore, right? I can talk about any type of spirituality to anyone that comes across my Zoom screen, and people are like, yeah, okay, yeah, you know, they get it. And I think too, in my final 8 years at Hay House, being on the acquisitions team and being part of buying books and meeting with agents and authors and really having a chance to start to change that narrative was a really cool opportunity, and more, you know, diversity and more, you know, more sort of voices that needed to be amplified, and being a part of that process is very cool too.
Which also makes you the perfect expert for what you do, because you had to come up with creative ways to explain, to give detail, to sell and have this be normalized. And so, like I said, you're the perfect voice for a new author to come in, or a seasoned author to be like, let's go on this angle. And that's what I found being in your program was really interesting, is your ability to see a different angle when you're writing. You can be very much, obviously, only in your head. You're only in your own space. And so you might get lost in where you're going with the story. And here comes Richelle, you know, on her, you know, spiritual horse. And she's like, ooh, how about this? And it takes a different spin and it opens you up. And then you're like, oh, wow, that's incredible. Let me try that.
Yeah, I think there's like the intuitive component for me, because I've been doing it so long, and someone can be talking to me about a book idea and I can grab like one thing and go, that's it, right? I feel it in my body. And there's a lot of it that's like practical, right? I have a very specific framework for helping people through this, because like you said, I've been in all the seats. So I had to both, you know, juggle the role of buying a book on the front end and then being the person on the back end that was marketing it. And so everything that I develop is really through that marketing lens, knowing that that's really where a publisher wants to be thinking. They want to sell books. It's a business, right? So how can we position someone's content so that it's really attractive to buyers?
Right. And I can say, like, as an author, it's a very personal journey where if you're not being held, like for me, I went in really, I'd be like almost innocent, you know, with my first book, just leaning in. And it was such a, you know, receiving your feedback, and it's, you feel really criticized. It's a very emotional journey and personal journey. And if you aren't working with the right people, you can just like toss it aside and not even look at it again. You can really just crush your ego.
Yeah. Yeah. It could be a real creative buzzkill too. It always hurts my heart when people come across my Zoom screen for a consult and say, I was in a particular program or worked with a particular person, and I feel like I kind of lost hope, or they made it feel like it wasn't achievable. And I'm here to tell everyone listening that I have seen all sorts of things happen. I've seen people with hundreds of thousands of followers, not get what they imagined was for them. And I've seen people with very few followers without even a social media platform get a significant book deal. So I've seen all the things happen.
Right.
And so my husband's like, you're an eternal optimist. And I go, I am.
Yeah.
I also just love to champion people's work, because this is intimate, and putting your work out for other people to judge is not an easy thing to do. And you need, in a sense, a bit of a cocoon to do that and feel like you have someone to turn to in the hard moments. And so that's why all of my clients, by the way, become friends. It's because they can't get rid of me.
Well, that, and because you're just so dang nice. I mean, you're just real. Like, you come into Richelle's world and you're welcomed with that beautiful smile and your big heart, and you're intuitive. And I find that, like, for me as an energy sensitive person, it feels safe. It's like, oh, I can go there and I can have that experience. And that's one of the reasons I've always like bragged about you to anybody that says, oh, I have a book in me. I'm like, good, go see Richelle, go check her out, go read her book, like, go here. Like, this is where you're going to be safe and held. And it's a big venture to take that leap of, yep, I'm just going to write a book. And so held is important.
Held is important, and also motivated to keep going. Publishing is not a fast process. So, it's all about keeping the momentum going and realizing that all of this feedback is just information and we all do our best. And I think what's cool for me too is when you're working with someone on their book idea, it also sort of sparks, creativity in other areas. So I've seen people like launch new parts of their business or a new business or leave a relationship that wasn't serving them. There's this like innate empowerment that comes out when you're doing the hard thing, that really kind of bleeds into everything else we're doing. So I get to see a lot of life transformation too, which is pretty cool.
My light just died. It just went.
I didn't even notice. It didn't get darker. Truly.
It's so funny. I'm like, whatever, it's fine. What is your favorite success story for your client? One of your favorite clients or success stories?
Oh gosh. There are a lot. Okay, so I'm gonna pick two. One is my client Vasavi Kumar, who I think
just had her on.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
So her book is launching in May. And when I think about Vasavi, it's all very full circle to me. So when I first met her, she was coming to me for the book proposal blueprint program. And she was a little uncertain. Like, she'd been through some programs and she'd been, sold some things that felt like they didn't work out for her. Can you hear that siren? Hold on.
No.
Pause. The joys of New York City. Okay. So she came to me for the book proposal blueprint. She was a little uncertain. And we were emailing and we did a phone call. And then I get this text from her. And she said, I feel like, this was before we were all doing everything on Zoom. This was pre-pandemic. And she said, I feel like I need to look you in the eyes to know that, like, you're my person to hold me through this. I said, I get it. So we immediately FaceTime, and she looked at me and she said, do you think I can do this? And I said, I know you can do this. And I had complete confidence. I wasn't BSing her. I really did think she had a book in her. And she said, okay, let's do this. And she went through the book proposal blueprint program. And what's funny is I get to see people evolve professionally and personally within that container. So she wrote what was sort of a different book proposal because she needed to get that out of her. There was some anger, there was some rage, there was some transformation happening that she needed to get on the page.
What I remember. And we were talking about that on her interview. She's like, no, I don't remember. I go, no, it was a lot of swearing.
A lot of swearing.
A lot of swearing.
No one's coming to save you. And there's no, man coming on the white horse. She was processing through this experience.
Yes.
And ended up with a good proposal in the end, but it was, her voice was evolving in that moment. And it turns out she started pitching it to agents and was getting some pushback and things like that. And then I had her on my podcast, and I get a text from an agent, a friend of mine, who said, who is this person? She's amazing. Like, her voice is so distinct and I love everything she's saying. And I was like, you passed on her proposal. She's come across your desk, and she said, there's something about her. I want to figure out what the book is with her. So they actually took part of the proposal and then they adapted it to be this new idea. She got a great publisher.
Got the chills.
It was just, it reminds me. So I just had a client on my podcast, Carrie Levine, and she talks about functional medicine. She's a practitioner, and she says, there's science and there's magic. There's science and there's mystery. There's things we just will never be able to explain. And when I think about Vasavi, it's one of those perfect sort of kismet scenarios, right? The right person listening at the right time, grabbing the right thing from that proposal, talking to the right person, and then it all comes together. And here she is approaching her launch day.
The alchemy of a miracle, right there.
The alchemy of a miracle, exactly. And
that's a great title.
I know, write that down. It's the next book. And she has a moderate platform. It's a great business, but she's not out there, with over 100,000 followers. And it's just proof that the right person and the right message, it comes down to alignment more than anything. Right. Really, so that's a success story for me. And actually the other person I'm thinking of is another blueprinter, actually, is Amanda Kuda, who is writing Unbottled Potential, coming out with Avery this year. And she just had a vision. She had been in the spiritual space for a long time. She looked at all of her mentors writing books, and she's like, I want to do that. I know I can do that. I talked to her sitting in her car at her 9-to-5 job. She was in the parking lot, and she's like, I know you're my person. It's just not the right time. I've got to get my shit together, and I'm going to call you back. And she called me back like a year later. She's like, do you remember me? I go, I remember where I was when I was talking to you. She signed up for the program. She went through, and she had one agent she wanted. There are hundreds and thousands of agents, but she had one she really wanted, and she got it. And again, another platform that was in growing, right? And so I think that a lot of times in our industry, we use platform as a bit of an excuse to keep us from getting started. Do I need to have all these things together before I start putting my book idea down on the page? And those are just two out of many examples I have of people that are like, the proof is in the pudding. Like, you absolutely can start going through your book journey without all the things figured out.
I love that. I feel like, well, there's hope, right? We lose hope when we think like, oh, I got to build the platform and I have to have these, everything is about the numbers. It's a numbers game. And I don't like that. I feel like it kind of goes back to that post that I was talking about, you put on today, about like, as if just sitting back and the numbers are going to come in. Like, there's an energy that comes in with loving yourself and pouring it into your business and sharing that. And it isn't about how many followers or likes or any of that. It's about how are you connecting with yourself and sharing that with someone else. How, what is that message? And it takes time, and it takes energy, and it takes dedication.
Yeah. And the root of platform is community building.
Right.
So whether you have 100 followers or 100,000 followers, the person with 100 followers may have way more dedicated people who are ready to champion their work, as opposed to 100,000 people where maybe half or more are just snoozing and scrolling, right? So it's really more about the engagement. It's about, the way I like to think about platform too, is it's really about getting out there and perfecting your message. Start teaching it. See how it resonates. Use your platform as like a focus group to play, to take risk, to see what lands, because that's going to inform everything you do.
And don't be afraid to put some things down or start fresh. Like, we were talking about Michelle Garside, and I started working with her because I was like, you know what, I'm ready for like a little cleanup, a little like, I'm different than I was, 12 years ago when I started. So let's refresh.
Michelle has said to me some of the most powerful things that I still carry with me in my business. She's brilliant. I call her the Goodwill Hunting of branding, because like on the sketchboard, like that's her, like it's very downloaded and intuitive to her as well. Yes. But I remember right after I had my son, and I was kind of playing with the idea of starting my own business, and she looked at me and she's like, you already have everything it takes for this to be successful. Just do it. And she dragged me by the hair.
Was it hard for you to leave Hay House at that point?
It wasn't, because I think it was just time. I had risen to the height that I was going to. There was nowhere else to go, frankly. I had done all the things. And when I sat back and said, what brings me the most joy and what do I want to keep doing? It was really getting to the people that didn't know how to make it happen. Like getting to the people who wanted to be published that didn't have the roadmap, or that were, that their proposals, just had they been tweaked, could have done the job, right? So I wanted to help the people. And what happens, in any corporate setting is when you've risen to the highest of the ranks, you work with the big dogs. And that's great. But my heart was with all the people that didn't know how to get there.
Right.
And so that is why I started my business. I'm like, I want to help the people that have the drive, have the passion, have the knowledge, have the stories, and just don't know how to get there.
Right. Yeah. You help people like see that they are popular.
Yeah.
Without that clicky thing. I don't know. Like, I love that.
Yeah.
Like you just,
everyone has value. And it's just, I think too, we get caught in this, comparison trap and all of that. And that's why a lot of my work for developing books is also mindset for the author.
Right.
Because you can't do this without a little mindset intervention, to keep going.
Because we're going to get into our stories once you're in there. Like, you can't help, but writing brings up it's emotion. So you're going to emote and you're going to get into some spaces.
Yeah. But even with all of that sort of career confidence, I still fell into the trap that so many people do. And Michelle lovingly pulled me out of it. But she was creating my first website. And she goes, what photos do you have? And I sent her like one headshot. She goes, like, where are the rest of your photos? I'm like, where else do you need them for this website? Like, just the about page, right? She goes, Richelle, you are the brand. And I'm like, gasp.
Right.
Like, no, for 15 years, I'd been behind the scenes building everyone else's career.
Right.
To be out front was nerve-wracking. And it took me a bit to get used to it. It's not like I was on Instagram, like doing my reels right out of the gate. Right. It took time. And to that post about entrepreneurship, like, nothing happens overnight. I was deeply uncomfortable at the beginning until I found my way.
There's healing in that too, because what happens is you have to get over that ego side of you, of hearing your voice, of seeing you might not look perfect, of skipping a word. You have to know that it's not about perfectionism. It's about your story. It's about your truth. And that alone, like, building your platform is very healing.
Yeah, my mom will still text me and be like, oh, you made a typo in your Instagram story. And I'm like,
God,
Mom, nobody cares. I go, we're moving at the speed of light. You're allowed to be, imperfect in social media and everywhere else, by the way. And it's beautiful and it's messy and they still get me. So it's going to be fine. But she's like, a proofreader. And so she's just like, oh, you missed. I'm like, Mom, don't text me these.
I think for me, like, that was a really big hang up because I'm dyslexic, and when you're doing your business, you're all hats. You're sitting in every seat. You're doing your copy, you're doing your editing, you're doing it all. And I was using something called pro writing, or like Grammarly, a lot like that. So you bring your text into there, and it doesn't fix dyslexia. It fixes like your typos, but when you reverse a sentence, and so I would get some feedback. People would respond and I would just respond back with, well, there's that dyslexic brain coming up forward. Like,
why do people feel the need to comment on? It's just fascinating to me.
I think it's perfectionism is a toxic thing, and if we're always looking to find fault with the world, you're going to find it in all kinds of ways, right? You're going to find it in somebody's copy, in somebody's photo, and then that comparison of like their business and or even their business model of like, yep, I'm going to meditate and everything's going to come to me. And it's not really like that. God never said, you're not going to put a hard day's work in. He didn't say that. He didn't say, oh, go do this alone either. He said it takes a village. It takes people, community, and you're great at bringing that community together.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's just, I got on a consult call the other day with a Latina woman who said to me, I just want to be transparent that it doesn't always feel safe for me to enter a conversation with a white woman about something that's so intimate to me. Like, she's writing about her life and her life stories. And obviously, like, there are certain things we can't share a lens on. But she said, I'm looking at the people that you've worked with over the last couple of years, and you seem to really champion marginalized voices. And I said, it's one of the biggest contributions that I can make to publishing right now is to make sure that all the voices that need to be heard are amplified. And she said, I wouldn't be reaching out if I hadn't seen that track record. And honestly, out of all the things people have said to me in my career, that has to be one of the most rewarding things.
I think that's incredible, Richelle. That's just a big testament to who you are as a soul, like what you've come in here to do. And I mean, it's clear because even you were saying, like, when you left Hay House and stepped into here, it was, you were working with all of the greats, and you were like, but there are greats ready to be born. There are greats ready to be found and to be loved, so that their voice touches other people, because that's the most important thing.
Yeah. Because I mean, I think when we think about some of our favorite books or the stories that have impacted us the most, it's not always through the biggest New York Times bestselling authors. Like, everyone's work is wonderful and valid, but I think it's really important for people who come from communities where they were told this isn't possible or not for them, that there is absolutely space. And I'm really happy that the publishing industry is waking up to that.
So what are you seeing now as the biggest trend, or
I mean, it's really two things. One is sort of thought leadership, expert voices. That's been around for a while, right? But the way that we think about the word expert needs to shift. So a lot of people, their knee-jerk reaction is, I'm not an expert. You are. There's lived and learned experience, right? What you've lived through, what you have championed through, what you have failed through, it is all information, and your story can absolutely create impact for other people. So I'm seeing sort of a broadening of the margins around expert. The other thing is story. So the personal essay category, the essay, the short narrative, is really booming. My client, Jen Winston, who wrote Greedy about the bisexual narrative, was just a huge win to work on. It was so much fun. And so those essay style books are quite popular right now. Those books it comes down to the writing, right? And the stories you choose to tell. And so I think that we are seeing a lot more in sort of bucketed genre specific content. So for example, finance for Latino women, or how to quit and rise through the ranks for different types of marginalized communities. So we're seeing a lot of genre specific books out there, which is fun. And I just think just more diverse voices, which will continue to grow. And I'm happy about that. So
I'm sure. So what's lighting you up in your business right now?
Oh my gosh. My podcast is always that is like, from my heart. I love to do it. Someone asked me the other day why I don't do seasons. I'm like, because I can't stop. Like, I love doing it. It brings me so much joy. And the book proposal blueprint, because that program, look, my private clients are incredible. And I love that work. They are people who are very established, right? They have been in their business for a long time. They know exactly where they're going. And I love that. And the blueprint students are people where I get to just see the greatest evolution. And so that's just really fun for me to see that growth. Someone for the first time go, oh my gosh, what I have to say has value. My story means something. They're getting to, get feedback from each other. They're just lifting each other up. That's really fun for me. I mean, that brings me a lot of joy.
Yeah. What is one fun fact that you don't typically share with your audience?
Oh gosh.
I love this one.
I mean, I was a drummer for a long time.
I didn't know that.
So yeah, that one you might know. I will not eat cooked bell peppers. And this is a long-standing family debate because my mom, God love her, is a freezer queen. She will freeze things for way past the amount of time you should freeze them. Sorry, Mom, if you're listening, we're outing you. And I got really sick off some fajita mix that had been in the freezer for too long. She claims I had a 24-hour
just don't even do it.
I just can't. I was like 9 and I still can't eat a cooked bell pepper.
You're right. I was 9 and I can't let it go.
I can't let it go. I know, maybe one day, but right now, no.
Awesome.
Yeah, I don't know if I have any, I'm a nail biter. I still work on that. Yeah.
I can't imagine that one.
I know. I think when I get really stressed, I'll notice myself and picking at them, which is why I try and keep my nails done so that I don't.
Right.
But yeah, it is a fallback.
My mom, she always had to hang up with people that would bite their nails, and she would always say, you're eating yourself. Stop it. It's gross.
I don't swallow though. But I just spit them out. But yeah, I get it.
Well, that doesn't sound good right there. I don't know where we're going, but yes.
I spit the nail out.
Okay. Okay. I sucked my thumb
G-rated.
until I was 11.
Oh my God.
And the only reason I stopped was because I broke my arm and I had a compound fracture. So they had to and so I couldn't suck my thumb. And so I tried, the right was just not the same. Yeah. And that was why I stopped.
Oh my goodness. Everyone has their thing.
Yeah. That was one of my, it was one of the soothing techniques to turn spirit off, to stop having the fear and to be present and seeing everything I was seeing. So that was my thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a gift. I have a friend who is, who has, I wouldn't say like shut down her intuitive side for a long time, but she's definitely gifted, and she's just now warming up to bringing more of that into her life. And it's just, it's really fun to watch. And it's like, I think everyone's got a little bit of it.
It's like when you remember who you are, there's this spark and there's this thing that happens. And I love the story that you shared when you first went to Hay House, when you were in the office and Louise, leaned in. And I like that so much because one, she was intuitive. She knew, and she knew what she knew. And so she was able to see the energy around you, to tap into that and a magic. And she was like, yep, here it is. And
yeah, it was absolutely an energetic assessment. She was also the queen of the Irish exit, by the way, which she had many talents. That's
hilarious.
One of them. It was so funny. But she's just like,
funny.
Okay, she's reached her maximum. There was so much learning that happened in those years, and a lot for me, just embracing a more spiritual side for myself. I'm Catholic, technically speaking, but was not raised, and we didn't really go to mass or any of those things. But it was really fun. And my dad, who is, by the way, like not a spiritual person, when I was pregnant, and I had a high risk pregnancy, and there were a lot of touch and go moments. I was home visiting in California, and he said, I was getting ready to leave. He's taking me to the airport, and he put his hand on my belly, and he goes, I just want you to know everything's going to be okay. And I was like, okay, Dad. Like, he told me later, after I delivered Cooper, that he was down in the parking garage and had a vision of his grandmother coming to him and saying, she's going to be fine. Put your hand on her belly and tell her she's going to be fine. Makes me emotional. I mean, he's telling me, he goes, I didn't want to tell you in the moment. I thought you would think that I was, insane or like, I don't know. But it was like, I think that like we are shown this spiritual side and spiritual world in these moments that are really impactful.
They really are. And I love that story. One of my favorite types of person to read is someone who is like a proclaimed atheist. And when there's a miracle like that happens and it's undeniable, it's just a remembrance of God. And so all of this love comes in, and that's where the miracle goes. And
and he was even like, whoa, what's happening? He's like, nothing like this has ever happened to me before. Clearly this is the moment it needed to happen.
Right.
And it was wonderful to hear about.
Yeah. So. I'm sure it like warmed up your heart. And
oh my gosh.
Like and all emotional because
yeah.
Yeah.
Because pregnancy hormones. Yeah.
I wanted to ask one more big question. I wanted to ask, who was the most influential author that you worked with at Hay House for you?
Oh gosh. This is a really hard choice.
I know, because you know so many people.
Okay. Okay, the first two that come to mind: Joan Borisenko and Greg Braden.
Joni,
I
knew it was Greg Braden.
Yeah. Joan, I'll tell you why. Both of those folks, and I also have Cheryl Richardson on this list, were people that had been doing what they do for so long before it was popular to do what they do.
Right.
And they continued the work even in unpopular times. And quite frankly, are some of the most down-to-earth people. And I remember, just very kind to me, very kind people who are in PR. Can be a bit of a thankless job sometimes, right? There's a lot of work that goes into it, but everyone only sees the result. And so those folks really went out of their way to be appreciative of the work, and just have funny stories. Gordon Smith, who's the psychic in Scotland, was probably one of the most fun people to travel with. But yeah, there's so many. And then there's, the newer crop of folks, when we turn a lens towards Louise's legacy of bringing in younger voices who are really going to create this trickle down effect, so people could have this information, this knowledge at a younger age before too much trauma or heartache hit in their life. I got to meet a whole new crop of people. And so Latham Thomas and Chris Carr and Gabby and all these people. So I launched over 1,500 books and got to meet a lot of really cool people. So it's
one more big question for you. What is the biggest lesson you took away from Louise Hay that she taught you?
That life is meant to be lived and joy is meant to be had. And I remember sitting at dinner with her and I took a bite of dessert and I said, "Oh, this is to die for." And she goes, "No, dear, it's to live for." And she would correct you in the moment because it was that important to her for you to understand the way that the thoughts and words that come out of our mouth matter.
Right.
And I also loved when she would dance around in my stilettos, which she did from time to time when we were traveling together. That was fun. But yeah, I think there was a lot of awareness to the things that we say, what we put out into the world.
For the details, small details.
Yeah, the details matter.
They do. Richelle, this has been such a joy.
I could talk to you forever. This is such a joy.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you let me ask you all these questions too, because I just feel like what a treat for you to have not even wanted to be there, and like God had this great plan and you were there and he just like brought you there. He's like, ha ha ha, here you are. And it just shaped you to be in this space where you are right now, present day. And like you said, you're supporting authors who think they don't have a voice. You're helping them to find that voice and reminding them that the world needs them. We need them.
Yeah. And in a way, in the end, it all that learning, I grew up there in a way, right? And I really became myself there. And when it came to the point of me training my team while there, I remember telling them people won't remember every single item that you executed for them, but they will always remember the way you made them feel. Mm-hmm. And like, that is something that I carry into my business now, like treating people with respect. And as humans who are doing something really vulnerable is like one of the most important things that I do. Yes. So lifelong lesson.
I saved a voicemail from you, and I don't even know how long ago it was. It was 9/14/2020. And the reason I saved it was because it was 44 seconds, and my birth time is 4:44. And so whenever I would get my fours, it would match up to like what I was being shown. And so I keep this, I don't even know what you're saying on this message, but I keep it because it's a reminder to get back to my book proposal. Like I put it aside, I put it away. And like, whenever I open up my voicemails, somebody calls and I'm like, oh, there it is. Like,
there it is.
There it is. It's 3 years later, but it's like here. And I know it's going to come forward, because we do receive those signs and we do have that connection. And I believe in that wholeheartedly. So
I do too. Timing is divine. I tell this to my clients, especially during the time that they're shopping their proposals to agents and their proposals out to publishers. It's like, you have to surrender a little bit, and the timing is not really ours, not even in this situation. So you just have to deep breath.
Yes, exactly. So, oh my gosh. Well, thank you. And let's tell everybody where they can come hang out with you, and if you have anything fun coming up.
Thank you. So right now I have a free training at richellefredson.com/training. It's called The Insider's Guide to Getting Published. So if you are thinking about becoming an author, you have the itch, that's a great free training for you. It's all about what agents and publishers are looking for, how to come up with the right book idea for you. Come hang with me on the podcast, Bound and Determined. Lots of teaching happening there, great conversations with authors and experts. And then Richelle Fredson on Instagram, and that's my website too.
Yeah.
Thanks to Michelle Garside, who changed all my branding to my name.
Right. That's right, because it was purposeful platforms.
It was purposeful platforms, which not only is a tongue twister, as we just established, I was like ready. That's when I was ready to be out front.
Right.
Yeah. That's when I stopped hiding.
And sometimes you need a good friend to see around the corners that you cannot see. And Richelle is going to be that friend for you as you're writing your book. She can see around corners that you just don't know are there.
Oh, so. I love that metaphor. Thank you.
You're welcome. And
this has been a pleasure.
I will be back when my new book proposal is coming. Like it's so funny. Like, you can write one and it can feel like they're not the right one, and it. And so we're just, my team, it's going to be new.
Yep. It's all happening. It's unfolding.
Yeah.
I'm here for you whenever you're ready.
Well, thank you. And we will put all of the yummy notes below so everybody can grab them. And I hope you have a beautiful day.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh, right? Did you just love this episode? Please be sure to go check out Richelle's podcast, Bound and Determined, and to get that free training that she's offering, because she knows all of her stuff. And I'm going to promise you're going to really, really love it. Thank you so much for tuning in. I value you. I appreciate you. And I wouldn't have a show without you. God bless you, and may you remember that you are unconditionally loved. Have a beautiful day.